Hi, this is Katie from Queen's Podcast. Just a heads up, our show does include some strong language. So if you're uncomfortable with that, this might not be the show for you. Cheers, bitches! Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about badass women in history.
Queen's, Queen. All day.
I'm coming straight out to NYC.
Queen's, Queen. Come on.
By now you know the truth like a polygraph. Bobby J. Too thorough representing.
Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Katie. We're back.
We're back. Happy fall.
Finally.
It's finally not summer in
I know.
Austin
It's
anymore.
like you step outside and you just start sweating.
Yeah, it's like there's a season besides just hot. So, happy fall, y'all.
Yeah. Happy fall, y'all.
And so we are back to talk about Jacquetta of Luxembourg,
Part 2.
part 2. But first we want to give a shout out to our Empress Patreon supporters. Brianna, Maureen, Charity, Angelica, Sarah, Tiffany, Jared, Kristen, Megan, Heather, Brendan, Melissa, Anastasia, or Anastasia, Kelly, Kate, and special thanks to Courtney for giving a $10 pledge. So she joins Charity, and I guess that's the Queen Mother rank.
Yes!
Which isn't technically even a thing. They've just decided to give us more than we were asking for.
It would be very fitting for Jacquetta.
Yeah. They are extra like Jacquetta.
So shout out to our Queen Consort supporters, Jessica, LaMichelle, Aaron, Jose, Helene, Terry, Megan, Anna, Amanda, Kat, Yara, Alexis Taylor, and Stephanie.
And another shout out to listener Valerie, just because she sent us a Facebook message and said, hey, I want a shout out and I like your style. So
Real direct. Love it.
Shout out to Valerie. And thank you to everybody who listens, our Patreon supporters on every level, and just anybody that listens to our little show. So thanks, guys. So Nathan, what are we drinking?
So today, we're doing a mocktail. So we were talking about this earlier, and you very well could add vodka to this drink. Mm-hmm. You maybe could even add rum, but I would just go for vodka.
Nathan did a juice cleanse.
Oh, I'm
this
bougie.
week.
I'm bougie.
So we decided to let our livers continue to
detox
cleanse out. But I really like this. Yeah, no, you could easily add vodka or rum.
So I'm glad you took a sip of it first, because I'm going to tell you what it's in it now.
Okay.
So it's orange grapefruit.
Oh.
But I used fresh grapefruit this time.
Instead of from
like a bottle or can or something like that. So it's actually fresh. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I took some passion fruit, and you scoop out the insides, and then you blend it in a blender, and it makes juice. And put it in.
That's really good. I do like it. I don't taste the grapefruit all that much. And I like that it's I like my orange juice with pulp in it.
Yeah,
so
the passion fruit gives it a little pulp to it. So
nice.
It's really delicious.
Okay.
And the reason I did it is because she's passionate, and, they're married.
She's passion fruit. She is a very passionate person.
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, where did we last leave Jacquetta of Luxembourg?
So, her husband and Jacquetta were in a castle at 1458 at this point. Cush-ass place, and we're living it up in a castle.
Well, they had been promoted. Her husband, Richard, got a job being go live in this castle and make on the coast and make sure no one's coming to attack us.
Which, on the coast, sign me up.
Yeah, I'll take a castle on the coast, please and thank you. Remember, the current king, Henry, he had recently had some kind of psychotic break.
Yeah. And
he had been catatonic for about a whole year and some change. But he's, at this point in 1458, he's coherent and kinging it up again.
Yay!
Yay! And the Queen Margaret, who was Jackie's BFF, finally had a baby boy, the Prince Edward. And Jackie at this point is also done having children.
She had a shitload of kids.
She had 14 children, and 13 of them survived childhood.
Which is insane.
Which for the time was bonkers impressive.
Yeah.
Their eldest daughter had married into a wealthy Lancastrian family.
Which, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Ka-ching. And so Jackie had grandbabies. She was Grandma Jackie.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good for them right now.
Everything's looking great for the Woodvilles. They got status. They got money.
They got a place to live.
They've got a happy family. They've got several places to live. They are doing just fine.
But, of course, all things come to an end.
Yeah. And the War of the Roses are she cannot, she, growing up, was surrounded by the 100 Years' War. And then
all of a sudden, they just go right into the War of the Roses.
Yeah, she got a few good years of no war, and then the Wars of the Roses just she had a lot of war in her life.
Right, and like we were saying, King Henry wasn't quite stable enough mentally to handle kinging and shit.
Yeah, a lot of people thought, hey, we should really probably get a king.
He went catatonic for a while, and that might not be the best king to rule. And while he was out of commission for that year, his cousin, the Duke of York, started getting support. So this is what started that faction of the War of the Roses. And they're
Yorkists.
Are they Yorkies?
They're Yorkies, yes. They are these cute little dogs with bows in their hair. Well, this wasn't good for the Woodvilles because the Yorks are gaining all this support, and they are like 1,000,000% Lancastrian.
They're on the wrong side.
Yes.
And like I was saying, the king wasn't really doing a great job at this point. His wife is actually the one doing most of the work, raising troops.
Henry VI just was a dud.
He wasn't meant to be
and
king.
His wife was just like, his wife was very passionate about keeping the throne for her son.
She was passion fruit about it.
She was passion fruity about staying queen. So she is the one being like, okay, well then we're going to raise troops. If you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and she took the reins. And this is the beginning of what we call the War of the Roses, where she starts to take the reins and try to fight back. Yeah,
and Queen Margaret commanded Richard Woodville to lead her army against the Yorks. Richard is like, his main foe is this guy named the Earl of Warwick, which, if you've listened to our Elizabeth Woodville episode, we call him War Dick.
Because it's very fitting.
Because he's a bit of a dickhead, and he likes to start wars.
Yeah. Dick.
Yeah, so Woodville and War Dick are like going head to head.
And Jackie's grown up with this shit.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be left behind. She's still
having babies at this point.
Yeah, so she wants to go with him. I mean, that's how she was raised. She was raised in the same thing. So she's like, come on, bring me.
Richie and her son John. No, I'm sorry, her son Anthony. Tony. Little Tony. Richard and Tony are going off to war. Anthony's her oldest son. And he was 20.
Yeah, and so he's a good age.
And she's like, I'm coming with you. And they travel to a place called Sandwich. And this is the Battle of Sandwich, which is definitely our most delicious battle we will ever discuss. Unless there's ever a Battle of Lasagna. Nathan, what's your favorite sandwich?
Oh, my favorite sandwich. I do like a tuna.
A tuna?
I'm a tuna, and I like Sprouts on mine. I'm one of those bougie people that like Sprouts on mine.
I like a good Sprouts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Delicious.
My favorite sandwich is peanut butter and honey. Anyway, that was silly. Let's get back on track. The Woodvilles are staying right off the coast at Sandwich in their ye old Airbnb.
Yes, they got a good deal.
They got a really good deal.
$200 a night.
Mm-hmm. They're getting their army ready, but Wardick shows up early.
Being a Wardick, as he usually is.
And he storms into their ye old Airbnb.
I know this fucking story.
He pulls Richard, Jacquetta, and Anthony out of bed in the middle of the fucking night.
I just imagine him walking in and, like, pulling them by the hair, pulling them out of bed, and being like, you're coming with me, bitch.
He's like, y'all getting kidnapped real quick. Like, can you imagine how scary that is?
I know, you're just sleeping, and then all of a sudden somebody storms in and grabs you by the head and says you're going.
No, yeah, and it's like, it's war. You don't know what fucking
you
awaits
may get
you.
Beheaded.
Are they gonna carry you off? Yeah, are they gonna carry you off and behead you? Are you gonna get like the shit beat out of you? Are you gonna have to watch your husband get killed or something?
Yeah, but luckily they loaded all three of them up in a ship and they went back to Calais.
Which was Calais is a place in France that at the time was under English control.
They're going back to
Calais. Yep.
Richard's troops were like demolished,
and boats ain't cheap.
No, especially back then.
Oh my god!
And you had to pay for a lot of labor.
They just completely, the Earl of Warwick just completely destroyed all their boats. I don't know how many casualties there were, but I know it was a huge loss for the Lancastrian troops because boats are fucking expensive and they're so important, especially when you're in a country that's an island. You know?
You have to sail across the ocean to attack people.
Though I guess whenever it's a civil war, boats aren't as
necessary, but it does help to...
It's depleted their treasury.
Yeah.
For sure.
Richard wasn't used to being on the losing side at all.
No, Richard he always won.
Yeah.
And
he was used
so
to winning.
So
much winning. So much winning.
The winningest. So they take him over to Calais, but they send like almost immediately they get there and they're like, why the fuck did we bring the wife? Like, why did we bring her?
She just needed to be back home.
And they just send her back, like, immediately. I personally think kicking and screaming. Like, we don't know. There's no documentation of, like, but I think she probably wanted to stay there with him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's her man, you know?
And she's always been, like I said earlier,
she's always wanted to be where he is.
Yeah, and she's always been like, war, I'm used to it. Let's go around with each other. As
Yeah.
long as I'm with you, we're cool. You know,
So
I don't imagine her being happy about being separated.
Being sent back.
Mm-hmm. And they were held there for 6 fucking months.
6 months, and it's not like today where you can just text and be like, hey, how are things going? Like, that's 6 months of her just sitting back in England being like,
I hope he's okay. Hope he's not
has
dead.
he been killed? Has he been executed?
Has he gotten some weird disease and
Yeah.
died? Like, there's all sorts of shit that can happen when you're taken prisoner.
So they were taken captive in January 1460. And in those 6 months, we don't know where Jackie was.
Yeah, they really didn't say anything about where she
So,
was.
I mean, she was either at court with the king and queen, or she was at Grafton with the rest of her children.
I would think she would be with the rest of her family.
Yeah, I think, or at court petitioning that, hey, y'all got to do something to get my husband back out.
Please don't let us die.
So she was in one of those two places. But while Richard was over there, we know that he was subjected to daily ridicule from Warwick and the Earl of March. The Earl of March, a.k.a. Edward of York.
A.k.a. Edward IV.
Exactly. But every day they were just... Because both of these dudes were born into very upper-class nobility. And Richard Woodville was born into nothing, you know? And so every day they're like, who the fuck do you think you are? Mm-hmm. You are no one. You do not deserve to be an baron. You did not come from a good family.
And Richard's like, okay, guys, this is totally fucking treason right now, so, let me go, please.
Yeah. And they did eventually let him go, which, whew, that is really lucky.
Yeah, especially during this time. He should have gotten killed.
He very possibly could have. Things will get nastier, so, spoiler alert.
Jackie is kind of done, son.
She's like, I am donezo with this situation.
And so she goes from court at this point and really isn't serving the queen too much anymore.
No, I think that really, this whole experience really put the fear of God in her.
Oh, yeah.
And made her, like, evaluate what is more important to me, family or these petty people fighting each other, you know?
And at this point, the queen is a little more than just passion fruity.
Oh,
She's just fruit to the max.
She is.
She cray-cray.
She is kind of losing her marbles, but in a different way than her husband.
Yeah.
Like, in a much more vengeful way. Like, and Jackie's just like, I don't have time for this kind of hate in my life. I'm gonna go see my babies.
Gotta bow out.
And they fuck off back to Grafton. And neither Jackie or Richard are really noted in any major battles or court documents or anything for the rest of 1460.
It was just kind of like blackout. And it was like, what? Don't really, they were released.
Yeah. But while they were kind of bowed out, that dude, Richard, Duke of York, was beheaded in this battle. And it was like super disrespectful.
Yeah.
Because, and this is when things start to get really nasty. Because before then, I mean, there was fighting, but you weren't just straight up beheading, like,
major nobility.
Yeah. And so what they did, like, in this battle where he was beheaded, because he had said he should be king, so they put a crown of flowers and thorns on his head, which is kind of sacrilege.
Yeah, it is.
For people that are so Christian, you know, I was like a little like, oh, this little sacrilegious. They beheaded him and put his head up on a spike and, like, put it up on the wall, like that town wall.
Those Yorkies are out for blood.
They are out. And so after that, they were like, oh, is this how we're going to play it? Because I think the Lancastrians really thought, we'll cut off the head of the snake. And the snake will die.
It'll be gone.
Except for this snake has a son.
And this son is now pissed off.
And the son is 6'5".
And he ready to fight.
And he is pissed.
In 1461, Richard was called back out to battle.
And so Anthony went too.
And how do you think Jackie actually felt about this?
She was like, guys, can we not? We're past this. Why don't we just, like, live in the country and be chill?
I'm so tired of worrying about you guys dying in battle.
But he's been a warrior his whole life.
So,
like,
you know, that's what they're used to.
That's what he does.
And this battle was called the Second Battle of St. Albans.
Mm-hmm. And the Lancastrians won.
Woo-hoo!
Margaret, the queen, she was heading the army, remember, because the king's just kind of not a part of this. And also because bitches get shit done.
And she was a little bit petty right now at this point.
Oh my god. So Margaret was out for blood. And her army started looting and causing all kinds of shit. And, like, they were heading straight for London.
And, oh yeah, London right now is under Yorkist control and, like, super duper Yorkie.
They super support the Yorkies. The mayor of London was like, close the gates, close the gates.
Yeah, we don't want our shit stolen.
Turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Everybody shush.
Pretend that you're not home.
And the mayor of London calls out, like, the three most, like, noble women in town.
I can just
like,
see it. I can see, like, all the lights in London shutting off,
Yeah.
and then, like, the people coming up to the gates,
And
these
ringing the
three,
doorbell.
and these three women in robes walking, and, like, walk down the street.
I know.
And they're like, hey, and one of those women was actually Jacquetta.
Yeah, and he was like, oh my god, please go talk some sense into her. You have been her best friend for 15 years. Go knock some sense into her head to, like, you know, not destroy the town.
That might be a good thing to do.
So I think the conversation went a little bit something like this. Jackie was like, hey, look, these are just, like, regular people. Please do not come in here and raise hell.
And Margaret was like, nope, they're Yorkies. They deserve some looting, bitch.
And so Jackie was like, yeah, but they are never going to recognize your authority if you keep giving them that kind of attitude.
So Marge says, okay, fine. But I have to have some of my army with me. I'll just take a tiny bit of my army with me.
And so Jackie's like, okay, let me check real quick. Oh, nope, they won't open their gates to any of your army because, you know, you're gonna loot and murder them.
And then Marge is like, fine, I'll go. But they're gonna all regret this, and London is dead to me.
So we can only speculate, but this was quite possibly the last time Margaret and Jacquetta ever saw each other.
Yeah, there wasn't. She didn't call her up on her cell phone.
Like,
she didn't say, hey, how are you doing?
They were like, just
happy birthday.
They were not friends anymore. The relationship deteriorated, and I think having her husband, I mean, it just really made Jackie realize that, like, peace was the most important. She was like, I'm just so sick of this shit.
Yeah, she's done with it.
I'm sick of seeing everybody's husbands, brothers, sons getting killed. Like,
yeah, and so finally Margaret takes off, and the next day they open their gates, and then Edward of York just strolls on in as proclaimed king.
Yep. London is like, yes, we like this young hot guy a lot better than
You're hired.
Yeah, you are hired. You are hired for king. We would like to offer you the position.
Would you formally accept?
Formally, here's your offer letter. Please be king.
And unfortunately, there was a little bit more fighting after this.
Yeah.
But the Yorks were just killing it.
Yeah.
Like, they were just slaying everybody that came in
They were
their
just so obviously better. And Richard and Anthony, they surrendered their swords to Edward, which just basically meant, we're going to recognize you as king.
Yeah.
We're not going to fight anymore, which was smart.
Yeah, good idea, man.
And if it had been a few years earlier, I think Jackie would have been like, no, we're not turning our backs on our friends and our king. But like I said, I think they were just all tired.
Yeah, and they saw that Margaret kind of lost her shit.
And Henry wasn't a good king.
Yeah, he was going all catatonic and shit.
And
so
everybody was behind this. And from what they could tell, Edward looked like he was going to be a good leader.
So they ended up returning to Grafton after this. They're like, okay, we're going to go back home and chill out. And then their daughter, Elizabeth, ended up becoming a widow during this time.
At the Second Battle of St. Albans, I believe.
Yeah, and so her and
fighting for the Yorkists. I mean, I'm sorry, fighting for the
Lancastrians.
Yeah.
And so her and her two sons ended up coming to Grafton as well.
So they got a full house, y'all.
Whatever happened to the predictability?
Newsman, the Paperboy, even TV. Right, if you did not grow up watching TGIF in the 90s, you were like, what the fuck was that? That is the theme song from Full House.
Yes, we love it.
So we're Yorkists now?
Yeah, we're Yorkies. Let's put on our little bows and walk around the house. And...
So they have flipped, and I think that's very smart.
Yeah, because Edward's a 10 times better leader.
And he was a pretty cool guy, because he told them, he was like, if you surrender, and if you put your support behind me and pledge your loyalty to me, you get to keep your land, you get to keep your titles, you get to keep your money.
You're not going anywhere, you get to keep your place.
A lot of kings before And a lot of kings after weren't so cool.
No.
Like, because there were some people that wouldn't pledge loyalty to him, so he did take their land and stuff. But the Woodvilles were like, yeah, fine. And so he was like, well, then I'm going to be cool with you. I'm not going to hold your... Because, like, a lot of kings would have been like, no, you fought against me, therefore that's treason, even though I wasn't king yet. And...
I think he realized the gravity of the Civil War and was like, let's just make peace. Let's calm this shit down.
He understood.
I don't want that your neighbor can also be your enemy, and you just want them to like be your friend as well.
I think
it's like,
I think Edward was a cool guy.
Yeah, he wanted to keep the peace.
Yeah, which is admirable.
Yeah.
And there was so Jackie and Richard have like 30 mouths to feed or some shit at this point.
It's a full fucking house,
so they can't afford to lose their titles and lands and incomes.
And their like youngest kid like 2, 3, 4.
Their youngest kid is like 4 or 5, and then their oldest child is living with them along with her 2 children.
Yeah.
So
they can't really afford to have anything taken away from them at this point. So they're not going to sit back and be like, no, we're not going to support you, Edward. No. They're going to hop on that train.
So I think that Jackie would have felt a little bit conflicted because Margaret had been her friend for so long. But, like, I don't think her loyalty ran so deep that she was going down with the Lancastrian ship. So I think she felt a little bad about it, but she wasn't losing sleep at night or anything.
No, I think that she knew that this was a product of the war. You gotta kind of adapt to the situation. So I think that she was a little like, oh, this sucks, but I kind of have to swallow that jagged little pill and deal with it.
So the Woodvilles lay low.
Yeah, and that's a good idea.
Yeah. They're not invited to court. Richard's not asked to lead any armies. Jacquetta's not asked to be a lady in waiting to anybody. They are just laying low. And that chillness lasted for about 3 years.
And then her daughter Elizabeth, who's a widow that we talked about earlier, she just ups and marries the king in secret. Like, surprise, Mom, I'm married.
Wait. No. Yeah, she had a secret marriage, but I think Jackie definitely knew about this. So if you haven't listened to our Elizabeth Woodville episode, just like kind of a quick recap. Elizabeth, Jackie's oldest daughter, Elizabeth, and the king fall in love. Elizabeth refuses to be his mistress, so they get married in secret. Jacquetta was like one of the only witnesses.
And that's a perfect witness because, I mean, she did the same fucking thing.
Yeah. This family's got something about secret marriages. Yeah. They just love them. But no, it just makes me think of like Kris Jenner. Kris Jenner being like, you're doing fantastic, honey. You're doing great, sweetie. Come on.
During her Playboy shoot or whatever.
Yeah. So, Jacquetta Jenner.
Jacquetta Jenner.
But no, so...
I can totally see it.
Elizabeth secretly marries the king. As far as we know, I'm pretty certain Jacquetta keeps this secret for a good, 3 or 4 months.
From her own fucking husband,
From her whole family. That's so many people to keep a secret from. And from her own husband, that she shared everything with,
I know. Big fucking deal.
Oh, I could never keep a secret like that.
No, Katie, you couldn't.
Oh my God. I am so bad at secrets.
No offense, but you'd be like, guess what I heard?
No, I'd be like, cool, I'm not going to tell a soul. And then, 20 minutes later, I'd be like,
you'd be out at the store, you'd be getting a hat, you'd be like, oh, is this fit for Queen Mother?
Oh, I mean,
what?
Nothing, don't ask. I can't tell you. But yeah, she kept her own marriage secret for a while, so this is old hat to her.
Yeah,
she knows what she's doing.
This. So she's Queen Mother right now, and eventually the secret gets out.
Yeah,
you can only keep this secret for so long, especially when you're married to the fucking king.
Yeah,
she may have kept the secret that her daughter was married to the king for as long as a fucking year.
Yeah,
which is a long ass fucking time.
But the truth finally comes out. Richard was elevated from Baron to Earl. So Baron is like the lowest of the nobility, and Earl is right under Duke, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So it's pretty high. It was a big promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
He was also made Constable of England.
And she's now the Countess Rivers.
She's Countess Rivers.
Which sounds fabulous.
But she could still style herself Dowager Duchess Bedford, which is higher, if she wanted to.
But I think Countess Rivers sounds so fabulous.
Yeah. She was definitely present at Elizabeth's coronation, which was like a huge to-do.
Oh, yeah. And she's now a staple at like all the court events.
Oh, yeah.
And outside of her family, she's not really that popular amongst the nobility.
The Woodvilles were not popular at court.
No, they were considered a little bit lower on the food chain.
A little bit.
Yeah, they were commoners. They were considered commoners, even though they really weren't that much.
She had one other son that Anthony had already been married off. And then Elizabeth's married off. That leaves her with 11 more. Well, I think one of her kids joined the clergy. But still, that leaves her with a lot of children still to marry off. And as being like brothers and sisters of the queen, they had to be married to like high positions. And this pissed off
a lot of nobility.
Because it was like, you're taking away the good matches from us people that were born into this and giving it to these nobodies.
Yeah, and there's 11 of them.
Yeah. For instance, Jackie and Liza arranged for John Woodville, who was 20 years old,
this story,
to marry Catherine Neville, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. She was 65 and bananas rich.
I bet so.
The Neville family was crazy powerful, and she was actually the aunt to the Earl of Warwick.
Oh, hey Warwick, how are you?
It was a full-blown scandal, y'all.
Jackie is
she
scared.
She ain't afraid of no scandal.
She ain't scared of no fucking scandal
she
at
was
all.
like, what?
They're
like, you married your 20-year-old son to a 65-year-old woman. And she's like, yeah, and we're fucking rich. And what?
Yeah.
And
there's a
what about
shitload of people that do not like the Woodvilles.
No, so they are not super popular.
No, and if they had a leader of the clan of the anti-Woodvillians, it would be the Earl of Warwick, a.k.a. Warwick.
He despised Elizabeth and Jackie. Remember, like, Jackie was born into, like, this great family. Like, this really, really noble family. And then she married some knight. And so the Earl of Warwick already disrespects her for that.
Yeah, and now she's bringing in all these fucking kids to make all the good marriages and take up all the good nobility. He is not about that shit.
Hate is gonna hate. But the Woodvilles were doing great. They weren't popular, but they didn't care. And Jacquetta was there for every major milestone that her daughter went through as queen. So that meant, like, lots of babies being born, coronation, fancy dinner. She was basically her main lady in waiting.
Yes, and of course Elizabeth is fertile as fuck, just like her mom. And
popping babies.
Yep.
Babies on babies on babies on babies.
Everything's going like perfectly great until things went horribly wrong again. I feel like
this was all going great until it all went bad.
Yeah, right. So the Earl of Warwick. He's so pissed that Edward married this nobody bitch and brought this giant nobody family to court, and that he's looking for someone else to partner with. And around that time, Edward's brother George is telling everyone that will listen that, you know, Eddie's not legitimate. He's an illegitimate child, and he's not really the king. Yeah. And
which is so, like, how petty do you have to be to basically be like, yeah, my mom slept with somebody else, and that's why. Like,
ugh.
I don't like George.
What a dick. What a dick.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Warwick and George start some serious shit, and they personally attack the Woodvilles by raiding and looting their Grafton home.
No one's home because they're all at court being, like, super royal and shit.
Yeah.
And they send, like, a gang of people to raid the Grafton estates. Like, how fucking petty.
Right? Like, they're not doing anything to you.
Like, I mean, even though the Woodvilles weren't there at the time, they still had, like, servants and shit living there, and, like, people, like, their maids.
Taking care of the place.
And so how horrified must have those people been? Like, that's so shitty. I hate that.
Right. So, in the summer of 1469...
In the summer of 69... 1469...
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
So Jackie had sent back to Grafton for safety, and Richard came to visit before heading out.
Yeah, so Edward, we skipped a bit. Edward was like, look, we need to put down this rebellion with Warwick and my brother. And Edward's thinking it's just going to be like a family thing. Like, they're going to go on Dr. Phil and it's going to be resolved.
Okay. Cash me outside. How about that?
Yeah, and so he's just like, look, Papa Woodville, you are an awesome, like, soldier. Just lead a troop out to, like, talk to my cousin, Warwick. Tell him what's up. It's going to be over in, like, a minute.
Just a little second.
And so, yeah, so then Richard goes back to, like, check on Jackie, and he's like, hey, I just want to come check in on you, make sure you're doing okay. I'm heading out on this like, little kerfuffle that's going on right now for the king.
Just a little problem.
We just got to tidy something up real quick. I'll be right back. And so he heads out with, I think, the son John. Anyway.
Yes.
In the summer of 1469.
And then Richard and John were caught by Warwick's forces.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that whenever Richard left Grafton, that was the last time him and Jackie ever saw each other.
Sadness.
I know.
And then the two were actually put on trial.
But put on trial is like...
You're guilty and you're going to die anyway.
Yeah, Warwick, like... I mean, it was like a kangaroo court, obviously.
Yeah, it's
like,
already set up that
It
way.
was just like, you're guilty of... Who agrees? And everybody went, I agree. And then they...
Off with your head.
Yeah, Richard and John were beheaded. And it was... And then they, like they did to the Duke of York, they put his head on a spike and put the spike up on the wall of the town of Coventry.
Yeah. And there's really no, like, written documents about how Jackie reacted to this news.
But how do you think she reacted to this news?
Come on. Like,
she must have been devastated.
Of course.
Just
like,
absolutely.
her husband's dead, her son's dead, everything sucks right now. She's obviously destroyed.
I mean, they loved each other.
Yeah, that was the love of her life.
So fucking much.
And she didn't have any time to grieve at all because at this time, Homegirl's getting arrested for witchcraft.
Oh, yeah. So, King Edward had been taken prisoner by the Earl of Warwick. And so he's just, like, hanging out in the Warwick's house, so he can't do anything to help his mother-in-law, who has been arrested and thrown in jail for witchcraft.
So the story goes that some guy brought this little doll to them that looked like a little knight in armor, and it had been cut in half. And he was saying that Jackie had been using that to perform witchcraft on her enemies, and like using that with the doll of like her daughter to make the king fall in love with her
like
daughter.
voodoo dolls or something.
Yeah, and then
like,
use the voodoo doll that represented Warwick to try to like pretend that she was killing him, or oh my god.
I think Warwick just had, like, I don't think anybody actually found these dolls. Warwick just, I mean, it's not hard to make some dolls. And
No,
he's, like,
he just
the most
bribed
powerful-
somebody.
Yeah.
He bribed somebody. He gave somebody money to say, hey.
But do you remember in the first episode about her, we talk about, first of all, she witnessed Joan of Arc getting burnt at the stake whenever she was young. So she knew what they did, the witches.
She knew what it looked like.
Yeah. And then remember whenever she was younger, that other duchess had been found guilty of witchcraft and like was thrown in jail for the rest of her life. And so
oh my god,
she was like, okay, best case scenario of this, I spend the rest of my life in jail.
Yeah, worst case scenario, get burned at the
at the fucking stake. And yeah.
And she didn't do anything wrong. We know she didn't do anything wrong. The only thing, anytime that a woman has education, they're smart, they have money, they're a witch. There's only one way that they got that far. They can't be because of their credentials. No. They're a witch.
Because bag of dicks. History is a bag of dicks.
She, for the most part, at this point, is completely defenseless because her son-in-law is now in Warwick's custody. But where most people would have been like totally having a fucking panic attack right now, Jackie was quick on her toes like a fucking cat.
Well, she was probably still having a panic attack, to be honest. But she writes to the mayor of London and is like, hey, remember that time I helped stop Margaret of Anjou's army from like looting London? that was cool, right?
Luton, London.
So I need a favor. And the mayor was here for her, honey. He was an ally. Let me tell you what. He was like writing every judge in town, every lawyer in town, being like, this is an outrage. This is a good woman. She did not.
She did nothing wrong. She should not fucking burn at the stake, please.
Yeah. Please, pretty, please.
So he ended up begging for her life and saying, please don't kill this woman. She really did nothing wrong. She tried to keep the peace when we were all trying to fight.
Yeah.
And her state of mind at this time is...
We don't know, but I imagine frantic.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this poor woman, love of her life dead, son dead. She's thrown in jail for witchcraft. They still actively burn people at the stake for witchcraft. And she's also like probably just sitting in jail being like, who's looking after my children? Because I mean, she's still got like babies.
Yeah.
You know?
Children.
Like baby children. And Elizabeth Woodville was in the Tower of London, but I don't know if she knew that. She was probably like, where is the Queen? Like, what's
going on? What's happening? What's the buzz?
So I'm just imagining there was like a lot of sleepless nights at this time in her life.
And luckily for her, all the charges got dropped on her because of that mayor of London.
The judges decided that they were like, well, this man was bribed.
He was obviously bribed. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah. So in 1470, she was cleared of all charges. Around the same time, Edward was released because Warwick was just sort of like, I caught you. And then he was like, now what? I don't know what to do. So he just let him go. And Jackie joined her daughter back at court. And everybody was like, I'm sure like it was a very bittersweet reunion because they were reunited and they were free, and that's amazing. But then
it wasn't under the best circumstances.
And then it was time to grieve about losing their son, her son and brother or father, and just time to take a deep breath and just metabolize everything that just happened.
Yeah, and finally, after all that, everything was going good until it went bad again. It just keeps happening.
We're gonna skim the details because the Wars of the Roses is complicated.
You could probably spend about 12 episodes on that.
But the gist is that the Earl of Warwick ran off to France and met up with Margaret of Anjou, Jackie's ex-BFF. And they joined forces to decide, they were like, well, we're going to overthrow Edward and put Henry VI back on the throne. And Henry VI, I'm sure at this point, was like, please no.
Please don't do this.
I'm good.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm good with not ruling.
Yeah. And so Edward has to raise troops and like go fight them off again.
And so they learned their lesson from the last time and they head to Sanctuary.
Yeah, they were like, oh, it's just like home base. Like, you can't touch me. I'm in Sanctuary.
Thanks, Jesus.
I mean, can you just imagine like sitting there in Sanctuary, you've got nothing but time on your hands. Just imagine, just thinking about like how fucking bizarre is life. That like my old best friend is now fighting
against me,
my brother, my son-in-law.
Yeah,
like
topsy-turvy world.
I know, it's bananas.
And plus, staying in a church like that with criminals and thieves and declaring like sanctuary and shit.
Oh, I'm sure they had their own sanctuary suite.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not amongst great company.
Yeah. While there, she helped her daughter give birth to a son. Yay! A son! An heir to the throne. So now, because they had only had, Edward and Elizabeth had only had daughters. So now that they have a son, it's like, okay.
It's solidified.
It's solidified. He has
an heir.
They named him Edward because people were really uncreative with names back then. But sadly, while in Sanctuary, Jackie's health did take a bit of a turn south.
And like I was saying, I think it's like you're in Sanctuary with a lot of different people there. There's a lot of...
also, you've had a rough couple of years, Like, grief will do that to you, too.
Yeah, it will. She lost the love of her life. She lost her kid.
She was put on trial for witchcraft. She had to flee for her life twice.
Yeah. So she's not exactly having the best of times.
So, Edward comes back to London after many months in sanctuary.
Many months.
He had Margaret of Anjou and Henry VI in tow because he was throwing their asses in the Tower. Warwick had died in battle.
Finally.
Somehow I doubt Jacquetta stopped to shed a tear
No.
for our friend Warwick.
No, I think she was probably pretty happy about it.
Yeah. And yeah, just seeing her old best friend thrown in prison must have just been like such a weird mix of emotions. Like relief that she can't do any more harm, but also like, I have people that I used to be good friends with and I'm not that close to anymore, but if I saw something bad happen to them,
You wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah,
You'd be
it still
sad
hurts
for them.
you a little bit. So it must have just been a really bizarre time.
Yeah, and her health just continued to decline. And in 1472, she ended up passing away at 56 or 57.
Yeah, since we don't exactly know. But before she died, she did take the Warwick estate to court.
Yeah, she
I
sued
think
them.
this is noteworthy. She didn't get anything. It didn't go anywhere. But wrongful death suits at the time weren't a normal thing like they are now.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty noteworthy that she was that bitter about it. She's like, I know he's dead, but I want your children to have to pay me for the loss of my husband and son.
Yeah, she was pissed.
She was pissed. But yeah, so she passed away. 56 or 57 was a good long life for the 1400s.
Yeah, and she was buried at Grafton, which is where she spent most of the happiest years of her
Yeah,
life. So that was a great
she
place
was happy
for her to
there.
live.
We don't we're not sure if her body's still there. There's no like grave marker or anything, but I'm glad that she got to get laid to rest there.
Yeah, and even later on in life, she ended up being charged of, not in life, she was dead, but in Elizabeth's life,
And
they ended up bringing the witchcraft charges up again.
so her legacy got through the reign of Richard III was completely tarnished because they said that her witchcraft had brought Elizabeth and Edward together. So that fucking sucks. But Richard III is definitely remembered as more of a villain than she is.
Yeah, way more.
So, fuck the haters. Jackie lived her own damn life on her own damn terms. Mm-hmm. She had a long and happy marriage that even like by today's standards, people could look up to and be envious of.
Yeah.
They legitimately loved each other in a time where that wasn't a necessity for marriage.
She lived through 2 different fucking wars and came out on top both times.
She made sure all her kids, and I think that's something, before she passed away, she did make sure all her kids were set. Mm-hmm. Like they were, it's like she went through all this and she just lost the will to live, but she wanted to make sure that
her kids will have happy lives and be set off for the right track in life.
Yeah. And basically she did what she wanted and she gave 0 fucks what anybody thought about her. So let's raise a glass.
Cheers, Jacquetta.
Cheers, Jacquetta.
Jackie O. No.
Jackie W. So thanks for listening. If there's something you want to hear, just like hit us up.
You can email us at queenshistorypodcast@gmail.com.
Find us on Twitter. We're at queens_podcast. We're on SoundCloud and Stitcher.
And follow us on iTunes at Queens Podcast, all one word.
All smushed up. Queens Podcast. Follow us on Facebook. Our intro music is by K Sparks featuring Beyond Belief. Thanks for letting us use your song, guys.
Thanks, guys, for listening.
Cheers.
Bye, girl.
Clink, clink. Mwah.